Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really wild knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Maxace Draco single action OTF. Couple of things right off the bat. Number one, this is a switchblade. Everybody seems to have a different personal definition of switchblade. This is factually a switchblade, legally a switchblade. Check your laws in your local area because this can get you in a lot of trouble. Number two, this is an incredibly powerful switchblade where it has one big spring that's constantly under pressure back here or under tension or whatever you want to say. And then when you release that, it fires the blade much harder than even something like a Microtech double action scarab, right? So one of my worst injuries with a knife was with a single action OTF. It hurts if you accidentally fire this into, let's say, your hand, which is what I did. Yeah, so be careful about that. It does have safety features, right? But just be careful about it. And then number three, let's address the elephant in the room. This looks almost exactly like the Microtech Halo, or more specifically, the Microtech Halo 6. So the very first time that I saw this knife, I thought, Maxace, did you seriously just duplicate the Microtech Halo 6? Which would have been a huge problem. I am very much anti-clone and anti-duplication on this channel. Turns out this is not exactly that. In fact, they took careful measures to not duplicate anything exactly. I looked at my old review of the Halo, and while it's clearly modeled after the Halo, like there's no denying it, each individual part is subtly different, which means that from the ground up, even the blade, right? From the ground up, they must have looked at the Halo and thought, let's just carefully make little things different. So can they do this? Apparently so. Should they have done it? I don't think so. Like Max says, if you guys are that capable, if you're this capable when it comes to machining and complexity, right? You can be so careful not to duplicate anything, any line exactly. You're going to put that much effort into it. Just make a unique one. Just make your own. It doesn't have to be exactly this. Maxace has demonstrated so many times that they're capable of coming up with interesting and unique designs, original designs, right? So why make something that's just as close as it could possibly be without creating a bigger issue, right? Why do it? I don't know. It's not an exact duplication. And if we're going to say that, then, I mean, geez, I've got a list of 50 knives that look almost identical to the Benchmade Bug Out that we could also take issue with, but it's not a clone. So I'm going to go ahead and review it, but I just wanted to let you guys know that's my official stance on that. It is not a perfect knife. It definitely does have some issues despite being substantially less expensive than the knife that it's borrowing elements from. So we're going to go over that. Thanks so much to Maxace for sending this in. This knife is available. I'll link it down in the description. I have discount codes for Maxace. So if you want to check that out, there's a discount code in the description. Let's go ahead and measure it because it's huge. Overall length of the Draco coming in at, yeah, about 10 and a quarter, almost 10 and a quarter, about 10.2 maybe, yeah, 10.2 inches, big knife. My voice cracked. The blade length, 4 and a quarter, cutting edge, 4 and a 16th. Big. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. Yep, this is big. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? It's still big. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. Still big. Okay, how's the action? This fires very differently than any knife. If you've never fired a single action OTF, it fires very differently. It's primed and ready to go. I have the Paragon Para X, which I actually really like to carry that one. It does not fire so hard that it scares me. It also doesn't have a weird safety feature on it. This fires extremely hard. It might be actually just as powerful as the Halo knife from Microtech. But it also has that same idea. And again, a lot of people are going to say, this is even the same switch and the safety thing. Yeah, they definitely borrowed that idea. But every last little bit of this, including the shape, the texture of the button, right, the little safety button in between, there are little teeny tiny differences, which means that each of these individual parts was made on its own. It was not directly copied. Again, I know people are going to have issues with that. You can think whatever you want. But the deployment of this knife requires you cannot just push down. But God, it acts like it wants to go, which makes me nervous. You actually have to slide this switch slightly backwards as you push the button, which kind of creates this feeling of, is it going to go? And sometimes it doesn't because I don't have this pulled backwards. And then when it fires, it kind of freaks me out, right? You get used to it, but boy, that thing comes out with a lot of force. On the flip side, is it satisfying? Yes. When you get used to it, oh man, that is powerful. This is not a knife that I hand off to. I got lots of knives that I hand off to my friends here locally who come to take a look at knives and just experience different things. This is not a knife that I hand to everybody because this is not an everybody knife, right? This will also, again, this type of knife will get you in a lot of trouble. It's very difficult for anyone to view this as anything other than a weapon. And I get it, right? I make arguments for standard double action OTFs as being much more utilitarian than they are weapony, right? But something like this, the size of it, the power of it, I mean, it's not necessarily designed to puncture whatever it's being held up to, but it will a little bit. I'm not saying it'll go all the way through, but it's powerful enough to do some damage. You know, it's just a very weapony thing. But yeah, just use your common sense, I guess. After you've fired it, you need to hold the button down and then you pull back on this thing right here to sort of reload it. Every single action OTF, since it's not a double action, it requires you to manually reload the blade or re-prime it or cock it or whatever you want to call it. This one has a sliding bar rod thing that's similar to the Microtech Halo series knives and also the Heretic, whatever their version of the single action OTF is. And those are not the only OTFs in the world to utilize that system. It's kind of the same thing. Sometimes there's a little spring with a tab on the side, like the Dark Angel with ProTech or the Paragon Para X, the Dalton Arrow. I mean, a lot of them have systems like that. So yeah, this one just has a system that's incredibly similar to the Microtech Halo. Sometimes it does not deploy. Well, it always deploys all the way, but sometimes it hits so hard in this open position that it bounces backwards slightly and you let go of the button and it's like this. And it looks like it's locked out, but it's not. This happens a lot with this knife. I've gotten to the point where I just hold the button down much longer than I think I'm supposed to. Because if I push it and let go, watch. Did it work that time? Dang it. This knife's not going to perform for me today. It's still doing it. Damn it. Believe me, sometimes it bounces backwards. And it doesn't lock out. It's doing it every single time now. Sometimes it bounces backwards and it doesn't lock out all the way because I let go of the button. That tab catches it like right here, right? So maybe this gets better over time, but it's not always there. Finally. See, this is what happens. Blade's depressed because the locking system hasn't slipped into place. There we go, right? So sometimes that will occur. It's annoying. And over time, firing this over and over and over again is actually pretty uncomfortable on the finger. And sometimes it gets stuck right here and doesn't want to release so that I can put it back into the handle. It's a little finicky kind of thing. It's kind of nature of the beast, but it's stuff you got to be aware of, right? Carrying this thing, got a note. Can't find anything on their website that says it comes with a sheath. I've talked to the few people that say it does or they claim that it does. Mine did not come with a sheath like the Microtech Halo. I don't care who you are. This is not the type of object you want floating around in your pocket. Yes, there's a safety, but do you want a primed blade with no clip and no sheath just floating around in your pocket? Do you want that? I don't want it. This is not a knife that I carried, before I reviewed it. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm not risking my goods for a tabletop overview. Now, if you think that I wasn't doing my job as a reviewer, well, you'll just have to deal with that. I'm not going to risk that for anybody. I carried this around in my hand and have definitely been enjoying it and sort of playing with it for weeks now. But without a sheath, something that keeps that blade in the most unlikely of circumstances from accidentally deploying, right? I don't want it in my leg or anywhere else, right? So I just didn't do it. I just feel like that is dumb. Maxace, if this does come with a sheath, you guys didn't send me one. If it doesn't come with a sheath, it definitely needs to. Now, I know we're going to get the tactical self-defense card going, it defeats the purpose. It's supposed to be deployed quickly and it's got to be ready for combat. Like, I get, okay. Yeah, but the likeliness of combat, like I would say like the ratio between like likeliness to use this in a self-defense situation versus the likeliness for the blade to accidentally go off in your pocket and like, you know, pierce your goods. I don't think that's a good gamble. I'd rather have it in the sheath and the sheath is attached to my person and I can pull it from the sheath and then deploy it. I feel like that's got to be just as safe. Right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure the Microtech Halo comes with something like that, right? Ideal way to carry this would be, you know, some type of Kydex sheath with a molly clip, right? Or a clip that allows the thing to go into your pocket and there's a clip on the outside. It allows you to do some sort of tactical draw. Yeah. Tactical draw, right? You're fighting terrorist clowns behind Walgreens or whatever. You got to pull it out quick and deploy it. But the whole purpose of the sheath needs to be safety, to guard the blade or guard the button from being accidentally depressed in your pocket. And in the incredibly unlikely event that it still gets depressed, something stopping the blade from fully deploying in your pocket. So there you go. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You're still carrying a gigantic object. This is a big object to carry in the closed position, right? Length and height, PM2 versus Para 3, or PM2 and Para 3 comparison here. It's big. Even though it's not super tall, it's a big object to carry, right? It'd be like carrying around a decent sized flashlight in your pocket, right? This is a lot of people would say if this was a flashlight, it's too big of a flashlight to EDC. Anyways. Weight, what are we looking at for materials? We have an M390 blade, heat treated to what? Does it say right? Yeah, M390, right there. So Maxace on a lot of websites claims 60 to 62 for their M390. I think that's great. I don't know if we have a lot of consistent community reports on how often they're hitting that range. I have heard from a while back that there were some M390 blades from Maxace that tested incredibly low. So I like it. I like that they're reporting that their range is 60 to 62. I would like to know if that's actually been the case here lately, right? This geometry, even with M390 being heat treated properly, is not going to be the best cutter. It's very thick behind the edge. And honestly, the blade itself is also very, very thick. So we have, hold on. We have 155,000 tons. So much blade, man. That's such a thick. Is that the same thickness as the Halo, or is the Halo even thicker? Right? Really thick. Also, a bit of a gunk trap in here, which is a bummer considering the blade has to slide back into the handle. I guess it's the same thing with the Microtech, right? There's just a lot of places where whatever you're cutting can get stuck on the blade, and you have to be really careful about cleaning it out before you push this back into the frame, right? You don't want excess friction built up with debris, even though it is a very, very powerful spring firing the knife. You don't want that getting stuck in there. So, yeah. Anyways, we were going to do weight, I think. Got off track. So we have, in this case, aluminum, carbon fiber. Really nice carbon fiber on there. It really looks good the way that they have overlaid it on top of this, and it actually has areas carved out within the aluminum for it to nest in there. There's also a version of this that has titanium Damascus. I think it might actually be zircotai, and then it's nickels Damascus. On their website, they list it as Nicholas Damascus. Maxace, if it is actually Chad Nichols Damascus, you got to spell that right. If it's not, if it's just Damascus made by a guy who goes by Nicholas, then you got to clarify. You got to tell us what it is. So yeah, but that's how the website lists it. So pretty big M390 blade, a lot of aluminum and some carbon fiber. No surprise, it comes. Actually, it's lighter than I thought. I thought it'd be at over 6 ounces, right? 5.5 ounces, relatively heavy object. Let's do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. We have a T8. Yeah, T8 across the board. If you really want to get in here, you can. I wouldn't recommend taking apart a single action OTF, but you can. It's not impossible, right? Just everything's under tension, right? There's a lot of ways for this to injure you. I know people are maybe, oh, you're being a weenie, or oh, as long as you're a knife expert like me. I'm Tom and a knife expert. I handled all the knives. I know what to do. Shut up, complex. Yeah. So seriously though, be careful with it. This is the type of thing that's much more likely to injure folks, right? So I know it's cool and the draw to it, especially with it being, number one, available over the Halo, and number two, way less expensive. It's very tempting to buy this. There's a lot of ways you can hurt yourself, and taking it apart is definitely one of them. I know you can do that with any knife. Proceed with extra caution with this guy. Everything's under tension, right? It's not the easiest thing to take apart and put back together, but it's totally possible. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Does this work as an EDC knife? Not really, for all of the things that I mentioned, right? But if you're like, I don't care, I'm gonna force it. Yeah, it's just a huge, cumbersome object. There's jimping back here. It's not incredibly comfortable, but I mean, it does look cool. It looks cool. It sounds cool. It's got a crazy deployment, right? I don't feel like anybody's buying this going like, that's like the perfect EDC knife. Like that, I'm going to dedicate to that. That's obviously been optimized for EDC, convenience, utility, all of that. Nobody is looking at this and thinking that, but just in case, I'm going to say it. It doesn't make a good EDC knife. Does it make a good self-defense object? I don't think so. I don't think that this necessarily deploys any faster. I mean, like, the speed at which the blade leaves the frame is very fast, but the whole process of removing the knife from your pocket and deploying it and then being ready to, being ready, I don't think it's any faster than Para 3, right? Or fixed blade, so it's more doing a service. It's tickling the fancies of the end user, right? And especially without the sheath, which again, it might come with, and maybe they just sent me a pre-production sample and mine just didn't come with it, right? But it doesn't say anything about it on the website. So it looks cool, and the fit and finish is awesome. Maxace doing an awesome job. I actually love this. It's almost like reptilian. This raised piece of beautiful carbon fiber that they've got on there. It's perfectly raised on both sides. Adds a little bit of cool factor and texture. It also adds personality to this knife that is different than the Microtech Halo, right? It's like, yeah, I'm definitely like a cousin, like a close cousin, or perhaps even a sibling of the Halo. Maybe a stepbrother. No, because it'd have to be blood. What's the best example? Cousin. But I'm doing my own thing, I'm not necessarily like part of the family biz. I'm trying to do my own thing. So yeah, it does have that. The back end's a little bit different too, right? Is it ergonomic and comfortable? Yeah, actually the lock-in zones are very good. And this is where, they definitely borrowed some of the lines. They did not perfectly duplicate them, but they borrowed the lines from the Halo, and the Halo lines work, right? I don't think that this knife is optimized to do anything knife related. Like it's a bladed object that will do it if you force it. But like every task that you could possibly want to do with a knife, this does it worse than your average, not even your good knife that's optimized for that task, but just like your average pocket knife will do pretty much everything better. The locking system that is responsible for holding this blade into position is definitely very strong. I demonstrated this early on in a short, or maybe the unboxing, where I went out and deployed it and jammed this thing into a fence and it was totally fine. So the locking system that's holding the blade out is fine. I would not pry with it, as I wouldn't pry with any knife, right? Definitely not. But yeah, it's the blade. Once the blade is locked out, it's locked out. And is there blade play? Well, let me tell you, it's essentially nothing. This, when people tell me, when they claim that their OTF, that's number one, not a ZBT Microtech or not a Hawk knife, and they say, Metal Complex, my OTF has zero blade play, my OTF has zero blade play. What they mean is it's got a teeny tiny little bit, and I will just pretend like I don't feel that, right? It does have a little teeny tiny bit. Little tiny bit, but almost nothing. It's essentially solid, right? I know you guys are fibbing a little bit, right? Seam construction, there is no like lanyard thing at all, which is fine, right? But yeah, the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. It's a nice, well-made object. How much is it? $288. Do I think that's fair? Yes, I do. Do I think this is a recommendable knife? No. No. You have to really want it. You have to know that it's dangerous, right? You have to accept that it's horrifically inconvenient, and just want it for what it is. And I get that, because that's why I want it. That's why I'm going to keep it, because I think it's cool. It's optimized for nothing. It's just an available and less expensive alternative to the Microtech Halo or Halo 6, right? So it is really neat, though. I am going to put it in my favorite knives of all time, which is very different than my recommended knives playlist, but it is going to go there because it's very cool. So that's it. Fun knife. Glad they made it. Not everybody's going to like it. Some people are going to be mad that I didn't call it a clone. Whatever. I've got my own rules here, guys. But that's going to be it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.